Have you ever walked into a room and felt someone's presence command it without them saying a single word? That's not luck. That's power. Carl Jung, the master of the human psyche, knew that true dominance doesn't come from shouting or outsmarting others with tricks. It comes from mastering your own mind. In the next 40 minutes, we're diving into the fifth of Jungian Rules that will teach you how to outsmart anyone, not by manipulation, but by understanding yourself and others on a deeper level, from unlocking the power of your shadow to reading the hidden archetypes in every conversation. These rules will change how you show up in the world, ready to turn your mind into your greatest weapon. Stick with us, and let's uncover the secrets of psychological mastery together. What if the most powerful thing you could do in any situation is to say absolutely nothing? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who dove deep into the mysteries of the human psyche, believed that true strength isn't found in loud words or bold actions. It's in what you choose to keep hidden. He called this hidden part of ourselves the shadow, the raw emotions, instincts, and desires we bury to fit into society's expectations. Most people think power means being the loudest voice in the room, the one who commands attention with witty comebacks or forceful arguments. But Carl Jung knew something they didn't. The first rule to outsmart anyone is to harness the power of the silent shadow. Silence isn't weakness, it's a strategy. It's a psychological weapon that turns the tables on anyone trying to unsettle you. When you stay silent, you create a mystery that others can't help but try to unravel, and in doing so, they expose their own vulnerabilities. Picture this: you're in a tense boardroom meeting. Your colleague, let's call her Emily, is gunning for the same promotion you are. She interrupts your presentation with a sly comment, questioning your data in front of the team. Everyone's eyes are on you, waiting for you to snap back or defend yourself. The old you might have jumped into the fray, matching her energy with a sharp retort. But instead, you do something different. You pose. You lean back in your chair. Meet Emily's gaze with a calm, unreadable expression, and say nothing. The silence stretches. Emily fidgets, her smirk faltering. She starts over-explaining her point, stumbling over her words as the room grows uneasy. Why? Because your silence isn't just a lack of response, it's a mirror reflecting her own insecurities. In that moment, you've taken control without saying a word. This is the power of the silent shadow in action. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow isn't just about the parts of ourselves we're ashamed of, like anger or fear. It's also a reservoir of untapped strength. Our raw confidence, our instincts, our ability to stand firm under pressure. When you embrace your shadow instead of suppressing it, you tap into a kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be felt. Your silence becomes a force because it forces others to confront their shadows, their need for validation, their fear of being ignored, their impulse to control. When you don't react, you create a void that others rush to fill with their own projections. They wonder, why isn't she rattled? What does he know that I don't? That uncertainty becomes your edge. Let's take another example. Imagine you're at a family reunion, and your cousin, always eager to stir up drama, makes a snarky remark about your recent career shift. Still chasing dreams. Huh? He says with a grin, expecting you to bite. The old you might have launched into a defense, listing your achievements to prove him wrong. But now, armed with Carl Jung's wisdom, you choose a different path. You smile faintly, take a slow sip of your drink, and let the silence hang. Your cousin, expecting a heated comeback, starts rambling to fill the awkward pause, revealing his own insecurities about his stagnant job. The rest of the family notices his discomfort, not yours. By staying silent, you flip the dynamic. You've let his shadow, his need to feel superior, take center stage, while you remain untouchable. Why does silence work so well? Carl Jung believed that humans are hardwired to fear ambiguity. When you don't react, don't explain, don't defend, people start projecting their own inner chaos onto you. They overthink your intentions, second-guess their own moves, and reveal their weaknesses in the process. It's like a psychological chess game, where your silence is the ultimate power move. The less you say, the more they expose. The less you react, the more they unravel. And the more they unravel, the more control you hold. But let's be clear, silence isn't about shutting down or avoiding conflict. It's about precision. It's about knowing when to speak and when to let the moment do the talking. Carl Jung's shadow teaches us that true power comes from integrating all parts of yourself, the light and the dark, the loud and the quiet. When you master your shadow, you don't need to prove your strength to anyone. Your presence alone commands the room. You become the person others can't stop thinking about, not because you demanded their attention, but because you refused to give them the reaction they were fishing for. So, how do you put this into practice? Start small. The next time someone tries to provoke you, whether it's a snide coworker, a passive-aggressive friend, or a family member poking at your choices, pause. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of your shadow, your instincts, your resilience, your inner strength. Let it ground you. Then choose silence over reaction. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Watch how your silence forces others to reveal their cards without you saying a single word. This is the first step to outsmarting anyone, not with arguments or ego, but with the quiet, unshakable power of your shadow. Here's the lesson. Silence isn't the absence of power, it's the disguise of it. By embracing your shadow, you turn silence into a strategy that disarms, unsettles, and commands respect. It's not about being invisible, it's about being unforgettable. Ready to take this further? Let's move to the next rule and build on this foundation to master your mind like never before. Have you ever felt like your emotions are a storm ready to sweep you away? One moment, you're calm. The next, you're reacting to a snarky comment or a stressful situation. And suddenly, you've lost control. Carl Jung, the visionary who mapped the human psyche, knew that true power isn't about suppressing your emotions, it's about mastering them. He called this process individuation, the journey of integrating all parts of yourself, from your ego to your shadow, into a cohesive whole. The second rule to outsmart anyone is to master your inner chaos. When you control your emotions, you don't just stay calm, you become a force that others can't predict or manipulate. You stop being a pawn in their game and start writing the rules of your own. Let's set the scene. Imagine you're at a networking event, mingling with potential clients. A competitor, let's call him Mark, spots you and decides to throw you off. He walks up, flashes a smug smile, and says, "I heard your last project didn't go so well. Tough break." Huh. The room feels smaller, and you can sense eyes on you. Your heart races, and the urge to defend yourself or fire back is almost overwhelming. But instead of reacting, you take a deep breath. You smile, nod, and say, "Interesting perspective," before calmly steering the conversation elsewhere. Mark is thrown off. He expected a defensive rant or an angry comeback, but your composure leaves him grasping for control. By mastering your inner chaos, you've turned his attempt to rattle you into a moment that showcases your strength. Carl Jung's concept of individuation teaches us that our emotions, anger, fear, pride are not the enemy. They're parts of our psyche. like pieces of a puzzle, waiting to be understood and integrated. When you react impulsively, you give others a blueprint to your mind. You hand them the keys to your triggers, letting them know exactly how to push your buttons. But when you pause, breathe, and choose your response, you take back control. You become what Carl Jung might call a psychological fortress, someone who can face chaos without crumbling. This isn't about being emotionless. It's about channeling your emotions into fuel for clarity and purpose. Not a leash others can pull. Here's another example. Picture a heated argument with a close friend who's upset because you cancelled plans to focus on a work deadline. She lashes out, saying, "You're always putting your career over our friendship." The old you might have snapped back, escalating the fight with justifications or accusations. But now, you tap into Carl Jung's wisdom. You pause, feel the sting of her words, and recognize the anger bubbling inside you. Instead of letting it spill out, you say, "I hear how upset you are, and I want to understand. Can we talk about what's really going on?" Your calm response disarms her. She softens, opening up about feeling neglected. By mastering your inner chaos, you've turned a potential blow-up into a moment of connection, and you've kept the upper hand. Why does this matter? Because emotions are the currency of human interaction. People who thrive on drama or manipulation rely on your emotional reactions to gain power. They poke, prod, and provoke, hoping you'll explode or crumble, giving them the satisfaction of control. But when you refuse to react impulsively, you become unpredictable. You become what Carl Jung's philosophy suggests, a person in the process of individuation, someone who's not just reacting to the world but shaping it. Your calm becomes their chaos. Your clarity becomes their confusion. And that shift gives you the edge to outsmart anyone. So, how do you master your inner chaos? It starts with awareness. Carl Jung believed that individuation requires confronting every part of your psyche, including the emotions you'd rather ignore. The next time you feel triggered, whether it's a cutting remark at work, a family member's judgment, or a stranger's rudeness, pause. Take a moment to name the emotion you're feeling. Is it anger, shame, fear? Naming it gives you distance. Like stepping back from a stormy sea to observe it from the shore. Then, ask yourself, what would my best self do right now? Maybe it's responding with a question. Like in the friendship example. Maybe it's choosing silence, as we learned in Rule 1. Or maybe it's redirecting the conversation to neutral ground. The key is to act, not react. This takes practice. But every time you choose control over chaos, you're training your mind to stay steady under pressure. You're building what Carl Jung called the self, the integrated, balanced core of who you are. And when you operate from that place, no one can pull you off your path. You become the calm in the storm, the one others look to when things get messy. That's not just power, it's mastery. Here's the lesson. Mastering your inner chaos doesn't mean suppressing your emotions, it means directing them with purpose. By embracing Carl Jung's individuation, you turn your inner storm into a source of strength, making you untouchable in any situation, ready to take it to the next level. Let's move to the next rule and see how you can use this foundation to read others like an open book. What if you could see through people's masks and predict their next move before they even make it? Carl Jung, the genius who unraveled the mysteries of the human psyche, believed that we all operate through universal patterns he called archetypes. These are the hidden blueprints of human behavior. Think of them as the roles we play, like the hero, the trickster, or the caregiver, wired deep in our collective unconscious. The third rule to outsmart anyone is to learn how to read the archetypes around you. When you understand the patterns driving someone's actions, you're no longer reacting to their words or behaviors, you're anticipating them. You're not just playing the game, you're seeing the board from above, knowing exactly where every piece will land. Let's set the scene. You're at a coffee shop, meeting a potential business partner named Alex. He comes across as charming, confident, always steering the conversation to his achievements. At first, you might think he's just a show-off. But Carl Jung's lens reveals something deeper. Alex is embodying the hero archetype, someone driven by a need to prove their worth, to conquer challenges, to be seen as the best. Instead of getting annoyed or competing with his bravado, you lean into this insight. You ask questions that make him feel valued. Like, "That's impressive. How did you pull off that deal?" His guard drops, and he starts sharing more than he planned, revealing details about his business you can use later. By reading his archetype, you've turned a potentially tense meeting into an opportunity to gain the upper hand without him even noticing. Carl Jung's archetypes are like a secret code to human behavior. They're not just random personality traits. They're universal patterns that show up in every culture, every story, every interaction. The ruler craves control and order. The rebel pushes against authority. The lover seeks connection and approval. When you start seeing people through this lens, you stop taking their actions personally. That coworker who always micromanages, they're not out to get you, they're likely a ruler archetype. Afraid of losing control. That friend who constantly stirs drama, probably a trickster. Thriving on chaos, to feel alive. By recognizing these patterns, you can predict how people will act and adjust your approach to stay one step ahead. Here's another example. Imagine you're negotiating a raise with your boss. Lisa, she's tough, always emphasizing rules and deadlines. And you've clashed with her before. Instead of walking into the meeting ready to argue, you pause and consider her archetype. Lisa's behavior screams ruler. She values structure, authority, and respect. So, you tailor your approach. You come prepared with data. Present your request calmly, and frame it as a win for the team's goals, not just your own. I've been able to increase our project efficiency by 20%. You say, and with more resources, I can help us hit those quarterly targets. Lisa nods, impressed by your professionalism. By speaking to her ruler archetype, you've turned a potential confrontation into a productive conversation. You didn't just ask for a raise, you outsmarted her by aligning with her deepest motivations. Why does reading archetypes give you such an edge? Carl Jung believed that archetypes are rooted in the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of human experience that shapes how we think, feel, and act. When you recognize someone's archetype, you're tapping into that deeper layer of their psyche. You're not just reacting to their words, you're understanding the why behind them. This lets you anticipate their moves, diffuse their defenses, and influence their behavior without them realizing it. It's like having a psychological map of everyone in the room. While others are caught up in surface-level drama, you're seeing the bigger picture, moving with intention and clarity. So, how do you start reading archetypes in real life? It begins with observation. Carl Jung taught that archetypes reveal themselves in patterns, repeated behaviors, emotional triggers, or even the stories people tell about themselves. The next time you're in a conversation, pay attention to what drives the other person. Are they seeking approval, like the lover archetype? Are they trying to assert dominance, like the ruler? Do they deflect serious topics with humor, like the trickster? Once you spot the pattern, test it. Ask a question or make a comment that aligns with their archetype and see how they respond. For example, with a caregiver archetype who loves helping others, you might say, "I really appreciate how you always look out for the team. Any advice for handling this challenge? Watch how they light up. Eager to share their wisdom, you've just built trust and gained insight into their motivations. This isn't about manipulating people, it's about understanding them. Carl Jung's archetypes help you see others not as enemies or obstacles, but as players in a larger human story. When you know someone's archetype, you can choose how to engage with them. You can de-escalate a conflict with a rebel by acknowledging their need for freedom. You can motivate a hero by giving them a challenge to conquer. You can connect with a lover by showing genuine appreciation. This approach doesn't just help you outsmart others, it makes you a better communicator, a better leader, a better human. Let's try one more scenario. You're at a community event, and a neighbor, Tom, is loudly complaining about the new park rules. He's rallying others to join his outrage, painting himself as a crusader against unfairness. Instead of arguing or ignoring him, you recognize the rebel archetype at play, someone who thrives on challenging the status quo. So, you approach him calmly and say, "I get why you're frustrated. Those rules do seem restrictive. Have you thought about leading a petition to change them?" Tom pauses. Surprised by your support, he shifts from complaining to planning, and you've redirected his energy without getting sucked into his drama. By reading his archetype, you've turned a potential conflict into a moment of influence. The lesson here is simple but profound. Reading archetypes gives you the power to see through people's facades and predict their moves. By applying Carl Jung's wisdom, you transform every interaction into an opportunity to stay ahead, not by out-talking or overpowering, but by understanding the hidden patterns that drive human behavior. When you know the archetype, you know the person, and when you know the person, you hold the key to outsmarting them. Ready to build on this? Let's move to the next rule and discover how to protect your inner world like a fortress. What if the secret to staying one step ahead isn't about outwitting others, but about protecting the core of who you are? Carl Jung, the pioneer who explored the depths of the human psyche, taught us about the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the world, the version of ourselves we show to others. But beneath that mask lies your inner sanctum, your thoughts, your energy, your true self. The fourth rule to outsmart anyone is to guard this inner sanctum with fierce intention. When you control who gets access to your time, your emotions, and your energy, you don't just protect your peace, you amplify your power. You become a force that others can't drain or manipulate, because you've made your presence a privilege, not a given. Let's paint a picture. You're a freelancer juggling multiple clients, and one of them, let's call him David, has a habit of sending late-night emails with urgent requests that could easily wait until morning. At first, you respond right away, eager to prove your reliability. But soon, you're exhausted, your boundaries blurred, and David starts expecting instant replies. Now, imagine you apply Carl Jung's wisdom. You decide to guard your inner sanctum. The next time David sends a 10 p.m. email, you don't reply. Instead, you respond the next morning, politely but firmly. "Thanks for reaching out. I'll handle this during work hours to ensure the best results." David might push back at first, but over time, he respects your boundaries. Why? Because you've signaled that your time and energy are valuable. By limiting access, you've not only protected your peace, but also elevated your authority in his eyes. Carl Jung's concept of the persona is about balance. The persona is necessary. It's how you interact with the world, adapt to social expectations, and build relationships. But if you let everyone have unrestricted access to your inner sanctum, you risk losing yourself. You become a doormat, drained by others' demands. Or worse, manipulated by those who sense your openness as weakness. Guarding your inner sanctum means setting clear boundaries around your time, your emotions, and your mental space. It's about deciding who gets to see the real you and when. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being selective. It's about making your presence so intentional that it commands respect without you ever needing to demand it. Here's another example. Imagine you're at a social gathering, and a friend of a friend, Sarah, starts venting endlessly about her problems. She's not looking for advice, just an audience. The old you might have listened for hours, feeling obligated to be nice. But now, you see this through Carl Jung's lens. Sarah's oversharing is an attempt to pull you into her emotional chaos, draining your energy. So, you guard your inner sanctum. You listen for a moment, then gently redirect. That sounds really tough. Sarah, have you thought about talking to a counselor? I've got to catch up with someone. But let's connect later. You walk away, preserving your energy for interactions that matter. Sarah might be surprised, but she'll learn to respect your boundaries. And you've just protected your inner sanctum, keeping your mind clear and your energy intact. Why does this work? Carl Jung believed that the persona is like a gatekeeper to your inner world. If you leave the gate wide open, anyone can walk in, friends, colleagues, even strangers, and take what they want, your time, your attention, your emotional labor. But when you guard your inner sanctum, you become selective about who gets through. You create scarcity, and scarcity creates value. People start to see your time as precious, your energy as powerful, your presence as something to be earned. This shift doesn't just protect you, it makes you magnetic. Others sense your strength, your self-respect, and they adjust how they treat you. You're no longer someone they can take for granted. You're someone they aspire to connect with. So, how do you guard your inner sanctum in everyday life? Start by setting boundaries with intention. Carl Jung's philosophy of individuation, the journey to becoming your whole self, requires protecting the space where your true self grows. The next time someone demands your time or energy, pause. Ask yourself, does this serve my purpose? Does this person deserve access to my inner world? If the answer is no, set a boundary. It could be as simple as saying, I'm not available right now, but let's schedule a time to talk. Or it might mean declining invitations that don't align with your goals. For example, if a colleague asks you to join a project that stretches you thin, you might say, I appreciate the offer, but I'm focusing on my current priorities to deliver my best work. These small acts of boundary setting send a powerful message. Your inner sanctum is sacred, and access is a privilege. Let's try one more scenario. You're a parent, and your teenage daughter is upset because you won't let her borrow the car after she missed curfew. She pushes, saying, You're so unfair. All my friends' parents let them do whatever they want. The old you might have argued or given in to avoid conflict. But now, you channel Carl Jung's wisdom. You recognize that giving in would mean opening your inner sanctum to her emotional manipulation. So, you stay firm. I hear you're frustrated. But the curfew is there for a reason. Let's talk tomorrow about how you can earn back that trust. Your daughter might storm off, but over time, she learns to respect your boundaries, and you've protected your inner sanctum, modeling self-respect while teaching her the value of accountability. The lesson here is clear. Guarding your inner sanctum isn't about shutting people out. It's about choosing who gets in. By embracing Carl Jung's concept of the persona, you protect your time, energy, and emotions, making yourself untouchable to those who would drain or manipulate you. When you control access, You don't just preserve your peace. You amplify your power. You become someone others respect. Not because you demand it, but because your boundaries command it. Ready to take this to the next level? Let's move to the final rule and discover how to set boundaries that solidify your strength. What if the ultimate key to outsmarting anyone lies in defining who you are and refusing to let anyone cross that line? Carl Jung, the visionary who charted the depths of the human psyche, called the fully integrated self, the self, a state of wholeness where your ego, shadow, persona, and all parts of your psyche align in harmony. The fifth rule to outsmart anyone is to set boundaries with Jungian wisdom, anchoring yourself in this self to protect your purpose and power. Boundaries aren't just walls to keep others out. They're declarations of your worth, signals to the world that your time, energy, and inner peace are non-negotiable. When you set boundaries rooted in Carl Jung's philosophy, you don't just defend your space, you command respect and create a presence that others can't ignore. Let's picture a scenario. You're working on a team project with a colleague, Mike, who constantly dumps his tasks on you, claiming he's too busy. At first, you pick up the slack, not wanting to seem uncooperative. But soon, you're overwhelmed. Your own work suffers, and Mike takes credit for your efforts. Now, imagine you channel Carl Jung's wisdom. You recognize that saying yes to Mike's demands is betraying yourself, the core of who you are and what you value. So, you set a boundary. The next time Mike tries to offload his work, you say calmly, but firmly, "I've got my own tasks to focus on. Mike, let's split the work fairly, so we both shine." He might push back, but your clarity sends a message. Your time and energy are sacred. By setting this boundary, you've not only protected yourself, but also shifted the dynamic, forcing Mike to respect your space or step up. Carl Jung's concept of the self is the culmination of individuation, the journey of integrating all parts of your psyche into a unified whole. It's not about being selfish or rigid. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to let others diminish it. When you set boundaries, you're telling the world, "This is who I am, and this is what I stand for." You're not just saying no to others' demands. You're saying yes to your own growth, your own purpose, your own journey toward wholeness. This act of self-respect makes you untouchable, because people who try to cross your boundaries quickly learn they're up against someone who knows their value. Here's another example. Imagine you're at a family dinner, and your aunt, always quick to judge, starts critiquing your life, choices, your career, your relationships, even your hobbies. "You're still doing that art thing. When are you going to get a real job?" she says, loud enough for everyone to hear. The old you might have argued or retreated in embarrassment, but now, grounded in Carl Jung's wisdom, you see this as a test of yourself. You set a boundary with grace. "I appreciate your concern, Aunt Linda, but I'm happy with my path and focused on my goals." Your tone is calm, your words unshakable. The table goes quiet, and your aunt, expecting a defensive reaction, changes the subject. By standing firm in yourself, you've not only deflected her judgment, but also shown everyone at the table that your inner world is off limits to criticism. You've outsmarted her without raising your voice. Why do boundaries rooted in Jungian wisdom work so well? Because they come from a place of inner alignment. Carl Jung believed that the self is the center of your being, the point where all your contradictions, light and dark, strength and vulnerability, come together in harmony. When you set boundaries from this place, you're not reacting out of anger or fear. You're acting with intention. You're saying, "My energy is mine to give, not yours to take." This clarity unsettles people who rely on pushing your limits to feel powerful. They expect you to bend, to explain, to apologize. But when you stand firm, you flip the script. You become the one in control. Not because you demanded it, but because your boundaries speak louder than any argument ever could. So, how do you set boundaries with Jungian wisdom? It starts with knowing yourself. Carl Jung's individuation process encourages you to reflect on what matters most to you, your values, your goals, your inner peace. The next time someone tests your limits, pause. Ask yourself, does this align with my purpose? Is this worth my energy? If the answer is no, set a boundary with clarity and confidence. For example, if a friend keeps calling you to vent, but never listens to your problems, you might say, I care about you, but I need our conversations to be a two-way street. Let's make time to support each other. If a coworker interrupts your focus with constant chit-chat, try, I'm in the zone right now, but I'll catch up with you during the break. These boundaries don't just protect your time, they reinforce yourself, making you a force others can't help but respect. Let's try one more scenario. You're a small business owner, and a client, Rachel, keeps asking for free revisions beyond the agreed scope of work. She's charming, but her requests are eating into your profits and time. Instead of saying yes to keep her happy, you tap into your self-boda. You respond, I'm glad you love the work, Rachel. For additional revisions, we can discuss a new contract to ensure we both get the best value. She might hesitate, but your boundary sets a precedent. Your expertise is valuable, and you won't compromise your worth. Over time, Rachel either respects your terms or moves on, leaving room for clients who align with yourself. You've outsmarted her by prioritizing your inner strength over external approval. The lesson here is powerful. Setting boundaries with Jungian wisdom isn't about pushing people away. It's about standing firmly in yourself. By embracing Carl Jung's vision of wholeness, you create boundaries that protect your purpose and amplify your presence. You become someone others can't manipulate or diminish, not because you're loud or aggressive, but because your clarity and self-respect are unshakable. This is the final piece of outsmarting anyone. When you know who you are, no one can take that away. Ready to bring it all together? Let's head to the outro and wrap up this journey with a call to transform your life. Imagine walking into any room, any situation, with the unshakable confidence that you hold the upper hand, not because you're the loudest, but because you've mastered your mind. That's the power of Carl Jung's wisdom. In this video, we've uncovered 5 Jungian rules to outsmart anyone, harnessing the silent shadow to command mystery, mastering your inner chaos to stay in control, reading archetypes to predict others' moves, guarding your inner sanctum to protect your energy, and setting boundaries to anchor yourself. These aren't just strategies, they're a blueprint for living with clarity, purpose, and power. Carl Jung didn't just study the psyche. He gave us the tools to transform our lives by understanding ourselves and others on a deeper level. Now, picture this: a life where you're always one step ahead, where drama slides off you like water, where your presence alone shifts the energy in the room. That's not a dream, that's the Jungian way. So, take these rules and make them yours. Start small. Try staying silent the next time someone tries to provoke you. Or set a boundary that protects your peace. You'll be amazed at how the world starts to bend to your strength. If these rules sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to join Jung Psyche Hub for more insights on mastering your mind with Carl Jung's wisdom. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, maybe a friend who's stuck in drama, or a colleague who could use a boost of confidence. And drop a comment below. Which of these 5 rules resonates with you the most? Is it the power of silence? Or maybe the art of setting boundaries? We read every comment and can't wait to hear your thoughts. Like this video. Ring that bell. And let's keep this journey of self-discovery going together, because when you master your mind, you don't just outsmart others, you become unstoppable.